Good evening, everybody. November 3rd, 2021. Let's take a look at Bitcoin today. Had some quite interesting action here with this giant wick down. So first off, let's talk about what it's not doing. This red count that I had on here as a possibility has been taken off the table now with that move down. It did not hold this area here that it needed to hold in order to press higher immediately, which is not a shock because this, like I said, this action in here was really not impulsive at all. It was looking like an ABC. So I'm removing that red count now. And so we have two scenarios to look at still. We've got the sort of bullish in the short-term scenario in the green count, and then potentially the short-term bearish scenario still on the table, which would be this being A, B, and then C down still is possible at the moment. So I think when I said earlier today that this action we saw right here, this giant wick, and then it getting bought up, virtually guaranteed the first scenario, that was talking about this green count here, right? Since we basically had ABC down in 4, happened much more quickly than anticipated, but that can be considered 4 right there now. And so we can then from here see A, B, and C up in 5, which also may happen a little bit more quickly here than anticipated. We'll see. But when it gets near the top of that trend line, this can then be a complete 5-wave diagonal move. And unfortunately, let me just label this before I move on. Okay, ABC down in 4, and now we need to see ABC up in 5 basically. So we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll need 5 up in order for this to continue playing out. So even if it does that, we still could have A, B, C, or WXY further correction downwards and make a nominally lower low. This green support box that I drew yesterday here would move up. If we move up to a higher high above where this 3 is, that box would move up then as well. But when we've seen this action before off of Bitcoin, typically it means it wants to come down and double bottom. So I'm kind of assuming we're going to get something around here, maybe 65, 66, 67, depending on how long it takes, somewhere around there, and then break down from there. We should see hopefully what looks like a corrective wave, a 3-wave move down, basically to double bottom right there around 57.8, 58K, somewhere in that region. And then the hope is from there, whether we get that double bottom or we get a nominally lower low. But whatever we get after this pullback, we really want to see a 5-wave move up off of that low then, which can still give us the much higher targets that I'm looking for the end of this bull run, which depending on where this goes and how the action looks, could be as close close to 200K. So that would be the ideal situation, because this is not ideal to launch us up from. I do not believe that we are going to break a new high without revisiting the lows. At this point in time, it seems quite unlikely. This action is all just chop and is not particularly healthy. So let me see if I can find an area here where we kind of had the same thing. We kind of saw it back here a little bit. This was the end of the correction really, but this action couldn't really quite get us launched, and so it came down almost to retouch down there and then chopped around for quite a while before actually trying again and finally giving us a move that was strong enough to take us higher. So that's kind of what I'm looking for up here. basically a move down into this area again so that we can retry to make a stronger move higher. So I do not expect we're going to be breaking these highs until we get a dip down into that region again. Like I said, at the moment it is still possible that we don't even get another high here. Maybe this was it, and we're going down from here. The only thing that makes me think otherwise, and that I said scenario 1 was the most likely, was this gigantic candle that we got. I mean, we had a huge wick down, big volume spike, people buying up the dip on that. So it seems unlikely, it's not impossible, but it seems unlikely that we would just proceed to break down from here. Like I said, it's possible, but unlikely with that wick and that volume. We really should see progression upwards here to at least tap that trend line again, and kind of at this point it would stop people out who have, if anybody was shorting and has their stops above there, it would stop them out. That would kind of be a stop hunt, trap some bulls, and then we'd proceed downwards from there finally. So I guess end result of this is that I do expect to retest this area, of course. So any leverage longs, if you took them, I would put break-even stops on and get ready to rebuy in this area again, and potentially take profit on them up here wherever it gets close to this trend line if we get some more pump action on Bitcoin here over the coming days. It's probably a good idea to start closing out some leverage in anticipation of coming down. I feel like I need to kind of address the fact, like, what if it just breaks up from here? What if we see this break up? And to be perfectly honest, I don't know how or why it would do that. This action is not indicative of that at all. Of course, it is Bitcoin and anything can happen, but this action does not at all make me think that is coming. But if it does, then I'll have to address that at that time. It's certainly not a scenario that I see playing out right at the moment. I guess the other possibility, so if let's say we get our 5 waves up to this area, 65.4 off the low. The other kind of possibility that we have, if we don't revisit the lows completely, let's make that pink. It is possible, I suppose, that this is a 1 in a leading diagonal with a 2 that could come down and just hold this area here. Like, maybe it doesn't quite come all the way down to retest the lows, but honestly, leading diagonals are so weak and really should not have any part of the beginning of a third wave, which is what we're waiting on right now. We're waiting on wave 3 up here, hopefully. So leading diagonal should have no play in that at all. So really, I actually want to see it break down into this area again so that we can try again to have a stronger move up. Like if we get up here and then come to here and hold and start pumping from there, it puts the entire rest of the bull market in jeopardy, in my opinion. And the 200K highs that I was talking about are probably going to come off the table if it does that, because we're just going to get a diagonal action up instead, which is significantly weaker and choppier, and we'll probably be looking at some lower targets then for the end of the bull market. So, all right, I think that sums up everything as well as I can sum it up right now anyway. So I will continue to monitor and let you know if anything changes, and I'll see you all tomorrow.